Mr. Scott Pechstein! Hey. Say Scott. Say Scott. That's right. LA. I love you, man. That was amazing. I love the alligator. It was real educational and made me think. I was never scared of spiders when I saw that damn movie, Arachnophobia. You guys remember that? And then Samuel L., he screwed it all up for us with those damn snakes on the plane. But no, that was interesting, man. That's you're an impossible act to follow, LA. That was inspirational. So I'm Scott Pechstein, born and raised in New York, not far from my buddy Sean Bradley. Never knew him in New York until I moved out to the left coast. Don't hold it against me. I live out in Southern California now. Sean, how long have we known each other?
20 years, bro.
20 years? I think a little bit more. 02, so call it 22, 23 years. When Sean mentioned that he's having the event, it didn't matter. I was making my way. So I'm honored and I'm privileged to share the next 30 minutes with everybody. I'd like this to be interactive. I'm actually going to bribe you guys with some money if everybody could take out their phones real quick and just look up your Google business profile. So if you're, ABC Chevrolet, if you're Capital Chevrolet, you probably have to put in your geo. Just do a search for your dealership, and we'll get back to this in probably about 4 or 5 minutes. We're going to hand out some money. Everybody can qualify if you're a dealer. Sorry, vendors. You need to look up your dealer profile. So Digital Airstrike, we've got two names. Some folks came over, they're like, hey, do you work for a new company now? DOS Technology. DOS Technology is our new name. We're known for Digital Airstrike over the past 15 years. Our core competency is reputation and social. So I'm definitely going to talk about a lot of reputation today, but we're a full-blown digital agency. So we do just about everything in the automotive sector. If there were a vendor, let's say at NADA, that did everything from A to Z, they'd be a unicorn because they don't exist. We do everything from about A to X. We're not in the website business, nor are we in the CRM business, and we don't want to. I run business development for the company, and again, it's an honor to be here, everybody. So what are we talking about? What we're going to talk about is our 10th annual automotive trend study. So every year we do a trend study, and we've got a lot of data that we want to share, but more important, what you can do with this data in order to sell more cars and trucks. Now, the funny thing about data is everybody's got statistics. There was actually a statistic I read this morning that 72% of all statistics are made up on the spot. We've got 7,000, so this is a really big sample set. There's one specific data point that I'm going to throw out that it's going to be a little bit controversial. It comes down to digital retailing. It was a hot topic yesterday as far as the percentage of people that actually go to your website and do the whole car from A to Z. Ian Devereaux from Don White's had mentioned that there's some wet laws here in Maryland that he's still got to tackle in order to do that, but we're gonna dive into the data. It's recent data, so it's Q3 and Q4 and Q1 data, Q3 and Q4 data. No, it's Q3 and Q4 through January. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare the data because we've been presenting this for the last 10 years. So year over year, we're going to basically showcase how the data's changed and again, what you ultimately can do to sell more cars. So what do we have in mind when we do this trend study that we do every single year? So we're looking for specifically, do online reviews, does the website chat, the way it interacts with the consumer, does that make a difference? Is website chat just a nice to have? Are people looking for it? Are people banking on it? Do you need it to sell cars? During the purchase cycle, is trust for a salesperson still important? Yes, absolutely. Let's just get that out of the way right now. This is a relationship business. This isn't Terminator 2 where the AI is going to come and sell cars for us. I think we established that already yesterday. And then after the purchase, asking for reviews. I heard it yesterday, I wrote it down. You have to ask for reviews, right? If you're peeling somebody out of F&I, you're peeling them off the ceiling, of course we're not gonna ask them for a review, but there is no compliment better than a review. Would you be willing to give me one? And during the delivery process, if you make that a staple in your delivery process, it's a great way to get your reviews up. It's a great way to bury those negative reviews, which we're always gonna get. Now, a lot of dealers that I go to have these QR codes now. Anybody use QR codes at the dealership to generate reviews? Good. One word of advice with the QR codes, don't keep them out in the open, right? Because now you're soliciting everybody to give you a review. Keep it close to your chest and then bring that out during the delivery process. So let's jump into it. So 10 years ago when we first took the stage and we started presenting this data, just about 8 out of 10 dealers use social media. You guys remember the Google Plus? That was a thing, right? I think it came out in 2011. It was like MySpace. It lasted 4 or 5 years and it went away. Google, however, didn't go away. So 69% of car shoppers said that dealer reviews were important. Now we use the word only. I think it's still a pretty big number. 10 years ago, 7 out of 10 consumers were looking at Google before they basically come into the dealership. Today, everybody, it's 95%. It's huge. So we talked about the importance of reviews. We're going to get into it from an SEO standpoint, but folks aren't going to buy from you. You're not going to go to a restaurant, right? For those of us going out to dinner tonight, I don't know Baltimore. I've been here a couple times in my life. What am I going to do? I'm going to look at reviews. So I would like to have a little competition right now. I'm going to take $50 out of my wallet. You know what? Let's make it 100. Ooh. All right. So everybody have their Google business profiles out? All right. So we're going to play a game. We're going to find out who's got the best Google business profile. Now, last time we did this at NADA, we had a tie. So we're going to, as a tiebreaker, we're going to go after critical mass. So anybody have under a 4.0? I want you guys to look at your Google business profile, and I want you to look at the stars. On your phones, does anybody have below a 4.0? Everybody's above a 4. Hands up if you're above a 4. Hands up if you're above a 4.1. Hands up if you're above a 4.2. Hands up if you're above a 4.3, 4.4, a 4.5, a 4.6, 4.7. All right. Anybody got a 4.8 or better? Still 4.5 hands up. 4.9. Okay, 4.8. Let's go back to the 4.8. So we're going to go to the tiebreaker. So we need at least 100 reviews to play the game. Who's got over 100 reviews and a 4.8? All right, sir, how many reviews you got? It's going to come down to the tiebreaker.
108 in trucks alone.
108. Well, you got 1,746 reviews, right? That's what we're looking for. How many do you have? 1,800? You've got 1,746? Sir? Bugsy, how many you got? How many? 3,200. Hold on, let me confirm here before I start throwing money around. Hold on, we're not done yet. Bugsy's a 4.8 with 3,200 reviews. Sure, sir, in the blue shirt. 796 reviews with a 4.8. So first of all, congratulations. Whoa, hold on. How many you got? It's still worth mentioning. You're a 4.8. That's huge. That's good. Okay, it's going the right direction. So for the folks that were maybe under a, you're welcome, it's my pleasure. For the folks that were under a 4 and they didn't want to raise their hand, there are some ways that you guys can increase your reviews, and it's not that tough. Again, from an SEO standpoint, there's a big deal on reviews. So let's talk about setting up your website to do more, right? We've been talking about, it was a really popular topic yesterday. I think they use the analogy, if you build it, they will come, right? If you build the digital retailing solution, the robots will take over. The car sales associates of today will not exist, and everybody will just buy their cars online. Bullshit, right? Digital retailing. So here's the stat. We asked 7,000 people, of the people that bought, how many people conducted online from A to Z, from end to end? 2.4%. So is it important to have a digital retailing solution? Sure. Because if you don't, out of 100 cars that you sell, you're not going to sell 2.2 on average, according to our data. Now, there's other people out there like Cox, they have a much smaller sample set, but they'll tell you it's 4, 5, 6. I've heard as high as 8%. But the numbers, whether it's 8%, 2%, or 1%, you still need to have that digital retailing solution on your website. But more so, ladies and gentlemen, psychologically, why you want a digital retailing solution on your website is to empower the consumer. Right, I know that a lot of us don't use Foursquares anymore, but allowing the consumer to basically put a pencil on their trade, right? Allowing the consumer to see a payment. Mr. Lettuce was talking about the power of a soft pull, right? Pre-qualifying the consumer. So the takeaway here is 84% of the shoppers say review sites like Google are the most helpful in making a dealership selection. So we're saying, obviously control your ratings, control your Google, whether it's Google, Facebook's another popular one, Dealer Radar, Car Gurus, Cars.com, Yelp. We'll talk about Yelp here in a second. But once they get to your website, you've got to empower them. You've got to empower them to do more, because a lot of us are still trying to get them in, right? Ultimately, get them on the phone. When can you come in? You've got to empower them to do a little bit more on the website when they're there. Review ratings. We've talked about that, how important they are. Number of reviews, huge. Greg Gifford talked about this yesterday. You need critical mass. So when you guys are on Amazon, I had to buy something on Amazon a couple days ago. I got a new iPhone 15 and I needed a car charger. I skipped right over the 5-star reviews that only had, I think there was like 13 or 14, right? Even if it's 5 stars and there's only 14 reviews, you're weary, right? When you're buying stuff on Amazon. You'd probably rather buy something with the 4.8 stars that has maybe 1,000 or 2,000 reviews. So as important as your 5 stars is your number of reviews, your critical mass. You also want recency. And this is all in the Google algorithm, as far as we talked about the SEO benefits of Google yesterday. So you not only want high reviews, you want a lot of reviews, you want newer reviews, because if there's 2-3 months where you guys didn't get a review, Google may think you're out of business. They're gonna index you a lot further than they would if you had recent reviews. We talked about responsive reviews. This is huge. This is a big, big SEO play, right? You've got to respond to your positives and your negatives, and you've got to do it in a timely manner. And then business listing syndications, basically all of these review sites have your information. It's really important for you or a partner of yours to check, to make sure that if you guys went through a buy sell, if you changed your address, if you broke out your sales, service, and parts, that the review sites accurately represent that. Respond to all positive and negative reviews. I can't tell everybody how often we talk to dealers and we say, hey, are you all over your reviews? If there's a negative review, Scott, I'm responding to that review within 10 minutes, within 2 hours. But a lot of people forego the positive reviews. By psychology of a consumer, they will not write you a positive review if they see that you only respond to the negative reviews. Think about that for a second. You've got to respond to the positive reviews. And it can't be the same canned response too, because that will hurt you from an SEO standpoint. Change it up. It can't just be thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to write it. Definitely make it a little bit different as you're responding to these reviews. If you have somebody responding to the reviews for you, make sure it's not the same response each time. That will hurt you. The more content you can put in a review, whether it's positive or negative, the better from an indexing standpoint. So that's huge. Ensure engagement with most customers by utilizing a secondary language for the dealers out of Dade County, Tucson, Los Angeles, New York. If people are speaking Spanish, I think we talked about this yesterday, respond back to them in Spanish, not English. That's huge. Dispute reviews. So there are a couple ways to dispute reviews. If there is any language, any bad language, you can dispute the review and get it to go away. Some sites like Yelp, if they use our names, we can dispute that. That's a big deal. Now, obviously, if we got a 4 or a 5 and they say that's Sean Bradley, he's terrific, yeah, that's fine. We'll let that one slide. But if it's a 1 or a 2, that's Scott Pechstein. It's an automatic rule for removal. If you contact Yelp, you'll never get them on the phone. But if you email the email address, they will remove that they will remove that negative review because it violates the T's and C's, the terms and conditions. All right, we talked about AI. We had a whole session on AI. The robots are taking over, right? So it's funny, the stat behind me, consumers they're used to having AI help out, right? We've all started probably with the airlines 10, 15 years ago where you get stuck in the phone tree, right? And the consumers in the trend study that we looked at, 41% of consumers under 65 list online communication, chat, email, or text as their preferred method of initial dealership contact. A quarter of those, 25% of the people who prefer chat, prefer to start with a bot and then transfer to a live person when they're ready. So I've got a point of view on chat. A lot of us have chat. If I asked how many dealers are using chat in the room, probably every hand would go up. It's uncommon to see a dealership without chat today. Who doesn't have chat? Okay, so the majority of us do. One of us doesn't have chat. Should get chat. Because the majority of the consumers are submitting leads after hours, right? For the dealers that are closed on Sundays, people get out of work, that's when they're submitting their leads, and obviously we're not around to handle the questions. But you'd never outsource the phone calls that come into the dealership. Why would we outsource the chats? So in our opinion, my point of view is that you guys should be managing your own chat. Now, there's a scalability problem with that, right? because all day long your phone, you're texting, you're constantly getting notifications to chat with your consumers. So you should invest, if you haven't, whether it's a bot or an AI bot, to handle the things like directions, hours, service. Do you do drop-off delivery? With technology today, you shouldn't have to pay somebody $20 or $25 an hour to handle those conversations. But when it comes to a point, hey, I'm a doctor, I've got a BK, I'm going through a divorce, do I qualify for the 0.9%? I don't care what kind of chatbot you have. That chatbot needs to tee that over to a sales associate. Because again, that's where we're going to work on that relationship. Not necessarily selling the car, but I'm going to quote Ian Devereaux, who was up on stage yesterday. His folks aren't allowed to sell the vehicle until they figure out what vehicle the consumer wants, right? So a chatbot coupled with a live person at the dealership should be able to handle that for you. Be in tune with messaging that consumers want. Share how easy it is to buy your online buying process. Again, knowing that 2.4 out of 100 consumers on average that buy are ultimately going to go this route, wrap your arms around them. At least let them start the process off on your website. Offer at-home test drives and deliveries. This was really big during COVID. The majority of us offer this, but we don't have it on our website. This is the stuff, I'm going to go back to Greg Gifford yesterday, who spoke at 8:30 in the morning. This is the stuff that you need to have on your website, somewhere embedded on your website from an SEO standpoint. If you guys didn't write that down, I got a full page of notes from Greg Gifford. Are you writing down on your website that you offer at-home test drives, that you're doing pickup and deliveries for service? Online trade evaluations. I don't like the word trade, and I know I used it in the presentation. I was talking to somebody at dinner last night. We know what trades are. Trades, using the word trade is very, very misleading because it insinuates the consumer actually has to buy something from you. The one organization who's done a really good job at disarming the word trade is CarMax. Right? Many of us tried to be more like CarMax during the pandemic because we all were short on used inventory, and we wanted to make it very obvious to the world that we don't only sell cars, we buy them as well, even if you don't buy from me. So is that language on your website? Are we effectively communicating this, that we sell cars, that we buy cars, even if you don't buy from us? Online service appointments and scheduling. This is something with technology today that your chat provider should handle for you. For the dealers, for our dealers that have our chat solution, there's a lot of chat solutions out there that do this. Something you want to make sure is that the chat can handle appointment setting, both on the sales side and obviously on the service side. We talked about this, communicate with consumers in the preferred method, texting versus email versus phone. I like all three. I like it in all three. I like Facebook Messenger. Somebody talked about FaceTiming a consumer yesterday. That might be a little bit aggressive. Does anybody have any success in FaceTiming? Yes?
One of the reasons why, because of the new technology with iPhone, like if you're able to, you can leave a FaceTime voice note, you have so if they don't answer the phone,
Yep.
I'll FaceTime them if I know that they're an iPhone customer, and then I'll just leave them a voicemail, FaceTime voicemail, so then they'll see it.
Yeah, that's huge. I like that. I'm going to try it. Next time I don't get you, Sean, I'm going to FaceTime you. I like Facebook Messenger a lot because we all get texts and we ignore them because we get a lot of them. Forget emails. I think the stat is 22% of emails are read, 98% of texts are read. But if I get a messenger, I'm going to think it's personal and I'm going to read it. So that was a good tip that we picked up yesterday. So again, we've talked about it a couple times. The stats, this deck is a hodgepodge of the stats, but more importantly, I didn't want to just present stats today. What you guys can do with this data, the feedback that we got over the last couple months off of 7,000 consumers to ultimately embrace the data and do a little bit more with it and sell more cars. Use the data to bring it back. All right, so we talked a little bit about data mining. We talked about equity mining. Who here is using a equity mining company like Auto Alert or something like that? Not too many, okay, about half the room. I wouldn't stop there. I'd go full data mining. So we're always talking about, Sean's always talking about, since the day I met him, we need more at-bats, right? The more at-bats you have, even with the same close rate, the higher the denominator, the higher the numerator, right? You close 20% on 100 leads, you sell 20 cars. Bump it up to 1,000 leads. Now you've got 200 sales, right? So there's ways to do it. There's lead providers in the room where you can control your costs at $20, $25 a lead. I've got nothing bad to say about the classifieds, right? The auto traders, the car gurus, if the cost is controlled, right? If you're paying $2,000 a month and you're getting 100 at bats and you're closing at 20%, your cost per unit sold is $200, right? So that's solid. But I like what Tiana was talking about earlier. You got to build that foundation. And we feel that SEO is a foundation. Because you buy 100 leads, if you don't pay up the next month, those leads go away, right? From an SEO standpoint, if you could build out an SEO presence and ultimately your own data and make the best of your own data by doing more data mining, those leads will never go away. They'll keep coming back and back and back. And a lot of times dealers are asking, hey, we need more leads, we need more leads. I ask them, well, how many people do you have in your database? 10,000. What are you doing with your database? So there's this topic right now, it's called CDXP. Does anybody know what that stands for? It's one of these buzzwords. I think they had transparency was a buzzword 15 years ago, and then big data was a buzzword. CDXP, Consumer Data Experience Platform. So basically, it's like your auto alerts. It's like your equity mining solutions. It looks a little something like this. So we have a solution. There's a lot of solutions out there. What it does is it bucketizes the consumers in your database, in your DMS, and your CRM. So you've got your active shoppers, your unsold prospects, your recently purchased, your service engagements, and your equity mining play. Everybody in your database should be getting communication. It should be email, it should be call, and it should be text. I think we've already mastered the calls, right? We've been doing that for 20, 30, 40 years. When somebody's due for service, we're calling them. When somebody's lease is up, we're calling them. But the efficient way to get in touch with the consumer is obviously not only by phone, but email and text. It should be automated. You guys shouldn't have a solution where you've got to go in and move the levers and press the levers every single week, every single day, every single month. So my challenge to everybody in the audience is, do you have half the room already has an equity mining play, which is huge, right? If somebody's right side up, or more realistically, at least $4,000 or $5,000 or better upside down, with let's say more than or less than 100,000 miles, we're trying to get them in, right? We're trying to get their car. Are you guys doing the same for your active shoppers? The person, if we're closing at 20%, that's fantastic, but what about the other 80 out of 100 people that didn't buy? Do we have constant communication going to those consumers, massaging them, letting them know your why buy, letting them know what makes you different, your unsold prospects, the people that submitted leads 6 months ago, you paid good money to get that data into your CRM. What are you guys doing with it versus marking it dead and moving on? So a good solution is going to tap into all these buckets and continuously communicate with them via email, via text. Make sure your provider's TCPA compliant, that they're sending opt-ins and they're adhering to opt-outs. Otherwise, you guys are liable for up to $1,500 per infraction. That's per text, so be careful there. Your service re-engagement. You know, service, we're going to face some headwinds, folks. Because of the diminishing sales over the last 3 years on the new car side, you guys have probably already seen it, your service bays are slowing down. And if they haven't started, they're gonna start slowing down. It's just math. You sell less cars, you got less cars to service, proportionally less. So what are you doing on the service side ultimately to get people in, to get more folks in? So the takeaways, reviews, reviews, and more reviews. Right? When we're going to dinner, as mentioned earlier, we're looking at reviews. We're getting judged off for reviews too. Everybody has Uber, right? Does everybody know what their rating is on Uber? Have you guys ever looked? What's your rating? Well, 4.9? So somebody told me a couple months ago, I didn't even realize they have it. So if you go to Uber and you click on your account, you'll see on the top right side your star rating. But let's all be obvious. We're going to get an Uber to the airport tomorrow. We're going to take a little peek, right? When the Uber picks us up to see what the rating is. If you get dropped a lot on Uber and you're scratching your head, why do I keep getting dropped? Look at your ratings. Because if you're a 3.8 or a 3.9, you just realize why you're getting dropped a lot, right? But we can control that. We can control that. What I do when I get out of an Uber, I say, hey, that's a 5-star rating. How was I as a customer? Scott, you were 5 stars as well. Great, I'm gonna give you a review. Would you mind giving me one as well? Because I don't like getting dropped. I got a bad review early on out of the gate, and I think I started out like a 4.3 or 4.4. I was ashamed of myself. Now I'm proud to say I'm a 4.89. So I'm catching up with LA. I know who voted me down too. Do you really? So reviews, Everybody, again, I can't stress it enough from an SEO standpoint. There was a show called, have you guys ever seen Black Mirror? There was an episode called Nosedive. Anybody see that? Have you? Was that crazy? So a couple hands went up. It's fiction, but it really wasn't. Every single person in this Black Mirror series, this Nosedive episode, everybody's got a rating. So Sean's a 4.5, LA's a 4.6, I'm a 4.3, and then basically the hotels that we get and where we stand in line all comes down to the rating. And it was a couple years old, but that's quite frankly where we're already here. Right? The fact that LA gets an Uber before me because he's a 4.9 and I'm a 4.8 is, I don't know, it's a little scary. Auto still and always will be a relationship business. It is a race to the relationship. Again, what I want you guys to do, walk away from the data. If you empower the consumer, they will trust you more. It's all about letting that guard down, right? So you can ultimately win the relationship to have a conversation. Don't be too pigeonholed into the request that the lead came in on. When you guys got a chat lead, whether somebody walks in on any given Sunday, don't go crazy about the specific vehicle that they came in on, because the majority of the consumers that come in on a certain vehicle end up burning gas in a different car. NADA says over 60% of the consumers that submit a lead on a Chevrolet Silverado ultimately burn gas in something different. Give them the options for the F-150. Another thing on Google, if I have a couple minutes still, something that's really important is that your vehicles are showing up on Google. I'm gonna digress here for just a second. Is everybody familiar with what they used to call VLA, the vehicle listing ads? They changed the name to Google Vehicle Ads. I think they recently changed it again to Performance Max. If everybody still has their iPhones near them, take a vehicle on the new car side that you have at the dealership and do a quick search for it. Now you've got to put in the geo, otherwise you're gonna see a local dealer's inventory. So if I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, what I would do is type in Chevrolet, if I'm a Chevy dealer, Chevrolet Silverado, Knoxville, Tennessee. Make sure your inventory's showing up there. I'm a little strange, I collect wedding rings. I only have one wife, I've got over a dozen wedding rings. And when I look at wedding rings online, on Amazon or even now on Google, it will say consumers that have looked at this wedding ring have also gone on to purchase this, and this wedding ring. Have we ever bought anything individually because of that algorithm that Amazon throws out? Yes, right? So keep that in mind when you're talking to your new car consumers. Keep that in mind when you're talking to your used car consumers. Give them options, give them the menu. If anybody did that search for Knoxville, Tennessee, I think you'll see a dealer called Rusty Wallace that shows up. It's really, really important that your inventory is showing up on Google. Pursue the right tech solutions to provide a seamless consumer experience to ensure you win the race to the relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your sharing your time with me.
Microphone. Hello. Guys, listen, I've known Scott for, like over 20 years. I mean, from when I was still an internet manager. That's crazy. And over the years, what I really respected is how much knowledge this man has, that he tries to help as many people as possible. I'm talking about, it doesn't matter how many times I've called you with a dealer on the phone asking you a question, or hey Scott, can we put this together? So if you're looking for an ally or somebody that really is dialed into the industry, you need to connect with him. And the stuff that he's talking about is spot on. Again, we were talking about before, like what session you're gonna do. So I appreciate what you're doing here. I wanna open it up to the audience. If you guys have any questions, Scott's background is pretty profound, so let's get some questions popping. Come on. Nobody's got any questions, really? There we go. Of course, in the back. In the back. And like LA, my voice is starting to go too. Hold on.
For Google business profiles, well, in listings in general, would you still use different tracking numbers, or can you just do it all in one?
Well, how many Google profiles do you have? So you can split them up into 3 now. So you got sales, service, parts.
Right, would each one have its own tracking number?
So when people click on it, it should be UTM'd. So your Google Analytics should show you how many people are coming over, right? So from an action standpoint, I wouldn't see any reason to bifurcate the 3 phone numbers into all 3. I would imagine you could just use one phone tracking number in all 3 profiles. So at the end of the day, you can look at a report and see how many phone calls are coming in. Right, so if you've got a service Google Business profile set up, it doesn't matter if a couple of those are sales. All that matters is that you have those profiles set up.
Right, okay, follow-up question. What about the Google Business profile number matching the Yelp listing and so on?
The Google Business profile, you mean specifically the phone tracking number?
Yes.
I'd use a different one for Yelp.
You use a different one?
Yeah. If I were a dealer, I'd want to know exactly where all my traffic's coming from, because a lot of dealers take the first step, but they don't take the second step. They go to spend the money with the vendor and set up the communication. I'm sure our telephony providers are shaking their heads right now. It's 2024. You've got to track where you're spending money with any of the vendors, including us in the room. Right? So you should have different tracking numbers ultimately to see. We talked about classified. I'm very neutral on the classified providers. I mean, if you grind them down hard enough, you can get a $15, a $20 lead, even if you're closing at 12%, your cost per unit sold still in line. But at the end of the day, you'll never know what you're paying per lead unless you're tracking it. So I would say, work with these folks to get yourself a package with as many tracking numbers as possible. To your original question, I wouldn't break it up for the Google Business profile. I treat it as a whole. But for Yelp, for Dealer Rater, for cars, for Auto Trader, for all those different avenues, yes, I would set up a different number.
Questions? Yo, listen to me. This time to dig deep. I know it's been like epic, but don't give up now. Let's dig deep. Let's ask some questions while we have these subject matter experts.
And to Sean's point, I'll volunteer some more information. I didn't know exactly what we wanted to talk about. There's a lot we could talk about, right? On the Google, what's a really hot topic? Somebody asked me earlier today. It's like, Scott, you do like 29 different things. What are you guys selling the most of right now? What's in demand? By far, the Google ads, right? So again, when you guys just did that search, that carousel of vehicles, that's how I shop. I'm assuming that that's how we all shop, whether it's the ladies in the room for shoes or purses or even boat fenders. I've got a boat and I was looking for boat fenders. I don't look down. I'm not going all the way down and clicking on the PPC. So what PPCs really quickly turned into over the years are those Google listings. So if your vehicles aren't showing up on Google right now, that's something I would highly, highly, highly recommend you talk to your agency about. Just as important is Microsoft. So Microsoft owns Bing. They have a partnership with Yahoo, and they own ChatGPT, which isn't going anywhere. So if somebody's on Yahoo and they're doing a search for, where's your dealership located, sir? In Gwinnett, Georgia. And what brand is it? So I would do a 2024 Subaru Outback, Gwinnett, Georgia. I do that on Google. Make sure that you've got at least 50% of the impression share up top. What I do after that is, again, a free tip of advice, go to Bing and do that exact same search. A lot of people don't think about Bing. Bing's market share has doubled over the last 18 months. Anybody know why? Anybody ever wake up in the morning, turn on your computer, and all of a sudden your browser isn't Google anymore, it's Bing? Yeah, so Microsoft owns our computers. They're changing our default browser. The biggest Bing dealer base, or consumer base, is in the state of Florida. Why? You live in Florida. Why? What does Florida have the most of any other state in the US? Older people that don't know how to change their default browser. So all joking aside, what's happening is you've got these, you're a 1970s model like myself. I'm not talking about you just yet. But what's happening is, again, overnight, people's default browsers are turning from Google into Bing. And again, I would just say it a third time, do a search for a make, model, and a year, put in your geo on Bing, and make sure you're showing up. There's only 4 vendors in the entire space that sell that package, that have that relationship with Microsoft. So it's really, really early on this. You'll start going to conferences over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. This will be a thing.
FMA.
Get in now. There's no such thing as exclusivity, but if the only people that are showing up are the third-party lead companies, which is a secret, that's how they get the majority of the leads now because they're pushed down so far, you guys should play ball there too. It's very, very inexpensive. Make sense? Cool.
Any last questions? All right, folks, let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Scott Pechstein with Digital Airstrike, DOTS Technology.
If you don't have access to Bradley On Demand, you're missing out on crucial information. The top automotive groups like Coons, Lithia, and Norm Reeves have all used Bradley On Demand to train their teams. And guess what? The world's #1 car salesman, Cody Carter, shares his exclusive strategies right here. You want his secrets? You gotta have Bradley On Demand. Stop waiting and start winning. Dominate your market. Click the link and get access now.